Now, the other day I was talking to a friend of mine about Star Wars, I know, very shocking, when I told him that I had a bit of a bold prediction to make, which was that I felt this coming May the 4th, which is just a couple days away at this point, I think we're going to get a major announcement out of Lucasfilm, and that announcement would be from Kathleen Kennedy herself, current president of Lucasfilm, of course, that she was stepping away from the company and would then be also naming her successor at the same time. His response to all this, though he saw my reasoning, which I'll get to in a second, was to basically say, it's not much of a bold prediction if I don't make it to anyone else but him, and so here I am putting it out there for everyone. And yes, I know I might be wrong and probably will be, but one way or another, a decision is coming in regards to Kennedy and her future with Lucasfilm. We know that her contract expires this coming September, that is a cold, hard fact, which means obviously the contract will either be renewed or not in the next 4 months. Or there's also the possibility that she will simply not re-sign. She'll step away and move on to the next chapter in her life, whatever that may be. And as I've said before, no matter when she does ultimately depart from the company, that's probably how this will be played no matter what goes on behind closed doors. Even if she's being forced out, it'll be played as Kennedy choosing to step away on her own, not her being essentially fired. They don't want in any way the backlash that would likely come from, again, essentially firing a woman in such a prominent position, which is why Bob Chapek, CEO of Disney, has done nothing but praise her every opportunity he's gotten, which I know some fans find worrying, but it's all part of the game, it's all part of the show. Furthermore, and going along with this, she will be thanked and celebrated for all she's done by Disney. They will have nothing but nice things to say about her. They'll talk about how she navigated through a difficult time in the history of Star Wars. She was the one who guided it after George Lucas stepped away, a nearly impossible task that they'll say she managed brilliantly, even if that's very debatable, not just because of how fans disapprove of her, but also because of declining box office revenue. Basically, Disney will lament the fact that they're losing her, while at the same time saying it's time to look forward, time to look to the future of the franchise, and the absolute perfect time to do this, to celebrate what she's done while also looking forward, is on May the 4th, also known as Star Wars Day. But there's something else very key that's happening on this day as well, which is the debut of the next animated show on Disney+, that of course being The Bad Batch. And this series is not only more or less a sequel to the extremely popular Clone Wars series, which is the last bit of Star Wars ever given to us by George Lucas himself, but this new series is being brought to us by the one who essentially was his Padawan. It's being brought to us by Dave Filoni. It's the next chapter of the Filoni-Verse, as I'd call it, and all the Filoni-Verse really is the direct continuation of George Lucas Star Wars, coming from someone who worked very closely with Lucas for years, and I don't mean on the business side of things, like you could say Kennedy did, but on the creative side of things. Which means, no, he probably doesn't know how to run the actual company, and I don't think he'd ever want to be president of Lucasfilm, or that Disney would ever offer him the job anyway. But I think he knows how to run Star Wars itself. I think he gets Star Wars in a way that not many people do, and that he knows the stories the fans want to see and can continue to keep fans wanting more and more for years to come. Which is why I think, and what I would do, and what I think we might see, is you simply place Dave Filoni in charge, story-wise, of the George Lucas era of Star Wars, the time period around and preceding the original trilogy and prequels, thus making the Filoni-Verse a real thing, more or less. Because again, all the Filoni-Verse really is the direct continuation of George Lucas Star Wars from someone who worked closely with him and who gets the stories of Star Wars. This then means you can keep the High Republic era sort of separate, let it be its own thing more or less, but part of the same overall continuity. Let that be Kennedy's lasting legacy at Lucasfilm, along with the sequel trilogy, for better or worse, depending on how you feel about it. And in the not too distant future, bring back into the official canon or sort of relaunch the Old Republic era. And the best way to do that is to remake the Knights of the Old Republic games, and it is being reported that it is happening, at least for the first one and probably for the second one as well. And if something like this did happen, and I truly feel like it could, it would be the best, most celebrated Star Wars day ever. You would immediately reinvigorate hope for the future in so many fans who are just done with Star Wars right now for one reason or another. And you do it right when a new show is dropping on Disney+, brought to us by the guy who, officially now, would be guiding the story of Star Wars during the Lucas era henceforth. And I say officially because I wouldn't be stunned if Dave Filoni has really been kind of dictating the story behind the scenes for a while now. And really here, for all intents and purposes, Dave Filoni should be the face of Star Wars. I truly feel that. even if he's not president, which again, I really don't think he ever will be, let someone else run the business side of things while he's out there being the one talking to and connecting with the fans in a way that, let's be honest, Kathleen Kennedy just never could or did. Because when Dave Filoni talks about Star Wars, I want to listen. I can hear the passion in his voice and I share that passion. While when I hear Kennedy talk about it, I want to ask if she's ever even seen Star Wars. And I'm joking, I'm sure she's seen it, and she probably doesn't hate it or anything, but I just don't get the sense that she likes it or cares about it all that much. I mean, from a fan's perspective, meaning if she wasn't president of Lucasfilm and a friend of George Lucas, I don't think she'd be watching it or caring about it at all. And to be clear here, I don't have or claim to have insider information. This isn't a rumor I've heard from inside Lucasfilm or anything like that. And I know there are a lot of rumors out there about Kennedy being on her way out anyway, so maybe this isn't such a bold prediction other than putting a date on it. And I do know that, yes, I probably will end up being wrong, which is fine, you can flame me if you want for it. But I'm mainly just saying I think this would be the perfect day for it, because of all the reasons I talked about before. Either way, I usually try not to get too much into those rumors and leaks about what's going on behind closed doors at Lucasfilm, about there being a civil war that may or may not be true, though is probably true to at least some extent, because there is always going to be internal strife at a company. There's always going to be people at a job who just don't like each other, or who are constantly jockeying for position or backstabbing others to improve their own situation. Those who would be willing to leak information to try to hurt someone else. I mean, every job I've ever personally worked at or heard about from other people, and this probably goes for you as well, and be they more professional jobs or just menial general labor, there's always conflict among employees or among employees and management. There's always factions or cliques at a job, just like there was back in high school. People who gravitate towards others or maybe away from others that they just don't like for one reason or another. So I'm certain something like this happens at Lucasfilm to some extent, especially when you consider what it is that they do, what they get to work on, when there just might be some people within the company who are truly there for Star Wars because they consider it an honor to be able to work on it or just to work at Lucasfilm in any capacity, while there are others who don't see it that way, whether just because it's a stepping stone or they relish the opportunity to use Star Wars to promote either themselves or their own ideas or an agenda. And so, obviously, those sides aren't going to get along very well, which means, yes, I'm sure there is infighting, which could certainly mean there are those on the inside willing to leak information that may or may not be true. They might leak false information just to try to hurt someone, and they know all they got to do is get it out there and someone will run with the story. In other words, who really knows what's going on at Lucasfilm, and depending on who you ask on the inside and what they're willing to say, you'll likely get some very different answers. All I know is that the clock is ticking on Kennedy's contract. The decision is coming one way or the other, and I think that announcement will be very soon. Heck, for all I know, we'll have an announcement on May the 4th, but it'll be telling us that her contract is being renewed. That said, though, I do have to believe, despite what they have said publicly, that Disney thinks Lucasfilm and Star Wars can be run better. After all, companies always think things can be run better. They're rarely ever happy or content. Even when things are going great, they think it can still be better. Though I really don't think Disney was happy with the performance of the sequels at the box office. I think other than The Force Awakens, perhaps, they were greatly disappointed with the other two films, to say nothing of the fact that the sequel trilogy merchandise just does not sell. And so I'd be very surprised if she's staying, but not surprised at all if we hear she's on her way out, and if that announcement comes this coming May the 4th. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think. Could you see this announcement happening on Star Wars Day? Or maybe you don't see it happening at all. Maybe you think the opposite will happen and she'll have her contract renewed. Whatever you think, though, do leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.